The Slippery Road by Richard L. Elsliger. I make my living in real estate, and I live my life as a realtor in North Carolina. I can say with some confidence that I have enjoyed a modicum of success in the real estate game, and today I sold another house. It was a tough sell and sat on the market well beyond the accepted standards of the real estate industry, if I may be so bold to call real estate my industry, because I do not build, but only sell. The ink on the aforesaid transaction had barely dried before I decided to take my car out for a celebratory drive, having converted this tough sell into an easy buy. I am a two-car owner, like many Americans, the key difference being that of the two cars, the second car is not a cookie-cutter model, used when the other is in the shop or low on gas. My second ride is an old 1958 Porsche 356A that I highly covet when she is out of my sight. I call her the silver bullet of the road, commanding attention everywhere I go. Very limited in production, she is a GS Carrera GT model. She's not the fastest car around, and that is assured due to her advanced years and old technology, but she's the star and I am her chauffeur. I am content to play the supporting role because she's the leading lady and allows me to take her wherever I want when the circumstances and driving conditions are right. I would die 1,000 deaths if anything were to happen to her. My former girlfriend resented the silver bullet, behaving like a werewolf in her revulsion of the old Porsche, fearful of the power behind the silver bullet to snuff her out of existence. She shuddered whenever I spoke of the silver bullet, the resentment clear and present any time I mentioned the old road-going weapon. The early afternoon sun beat down on me, blasting rays of sunlight through the windshield of my daily driver. I made it home in reasonable time to switch clothes and switch cars. I threw on a pair of blue jeans and a white t-shirt. A Rolex baseball cap and gym shoes completed my attire, and I headed to the garage. I opened the door, and there she sat on a rotating display pedestal, an oddity that I had installed in the floor of my garage at great expense. A vanity, really, to display my prize on a spinning platform. Anytime I wished to take her out for a jaunt on the open road, I clicked a button on the wall and the car pedestal would rotate the silver bullet to point at the exit door. Coming off the real estate high of my sale this morning, I engaged the very feature of which I boast, activating the wall switch, turning the silver bullet to face the garage door. With mechanical precision, I clicked on the remote for the garage door in sequence, letting the light of day intrude deeply within the sequestered confines of the Porsche cave. Mentally, I prepared for the journey, treating each drive behind the wheel of the silver bullet as an adventure and voyage to the unknown, much like the Viking explorers must have felt in their heyday. I believe that man and machine are now and have always been inseparable, no matter what era of transportation in the human timeline, be it boat, a car, or a plane. Some even gave special names to their chosen method of conveyance. Many ships from the past bore grandiose names and titles, and such things persist even on spacecraft to this day. My perception of this belief is a persistent affectation of mine left over from childhood. I've been roundly criticized for owning such a car, not only by my parents, but business associates as well, who admonish me to grow up and live a low-key life with a family sedan. I retort with a solid rebuff that we all have our idiosyncrasies, our so-called weaknesses that compel us to answer the call of what drives us. I owe no apologies to anyone, and I am going to do what drives me. Do we not all, to greater and lesser extents? As I see it, we are all headed down a one-way street in life, with no opportunity to go in reverse. You had better be certain to be on the best one-way street you can find, or navigate toward one pretty fast that has smooth asphalt and fewer stop signs or red lights. Otherwise, you are going to have a terribly frustrating existence right into the grave. I consider myself quite fortunate to have navigated onto the best boulevard around, and at the ripe age of 35, my life has moved smoothly with scarcely so much as a pothole or a tar bump. The Porsche Boxer engine fired on command, and the dual Weber carburetors slurped high-octane gasoline like a thirsty dog drinking from its bowl. I engaged first gear and gently let up on the clutch, bringing the silver bullet to bear on the world. We moved into the sunlight, and the paint shimmered with delight to be let out of the cave. The Porsche's air-cooled engine barked in reaction to my revs, displaying her pleasure for my undivided attention. I closed the garage door behind, and we were on our way. Gorgeous weather provided a dome of sunshine over the area, and I navigated roads and side streets, cruising at speed that allowed for my senses to absorb the most minuscule of details from the surroundings. Fresh, salty odors from the coastline filled my nose, and bright sunlight illuminated the beautiful surroundings. I aimed for the interstate, intending to let the engine sing and the tires devour the road that unfurled before me. The silver bullet expressed her gratitude through the sounds of her engine, and if a car could talk, the voice of my car found the epicenter of her words within the heart of the power plant behind me. The air sailed over the silver bullet's curvy body lines and rushed in through my open windows. I drove on, burning down the interstate and racking up miles without a care. In the distance, I spotted an exit I'd not seen before, and my adventurous side motivated me to turn the wood-rimmed steering wheel slight right. I rolled down the off-ramp and made a right turn. The road was a one-way and stretched far beyond the capabilities of my eyesight to make a clear determination what lay ahead. The sun vanished behind a large cloud, and my eyes adjusted to the new contrast filtered through my Ray-Ban sunglasses. I drove a good half-mile on the one-way, noting the complete absence of any commercial establishments or residential dwellings. It felt good to get away from society for a change, and the conspicuous absence of any civilization down this road proved most welcome to the deepest levels of my psyche. The further I drove, the more I noted a distinct absence of road signs, and the more readily apparent it became that there were no adjoining side roads to exit and change course should I have desired. This was getting exciting. I reined in my pace, though I saw no posted speed limit, meaning that I would have a good affirmative defense to a speeding ticket. I still exercised due care to moderate my speed, not going too fast for fear of an animal darting out on the road and destroying the precious bodywork of both the animal and the silver bullet. I maintained a philosophy of do no harm, and I stubbornly adhered to such philosophy in both my professional and private life. The salty air thinned and a sweet aroma took its place. The odor reminded me of a woman's perfume, intoxicating in its scent. It drew me onward, and I continued at what I deemed to be a leisurely and safe speed. I checked my rear-view mirror for any cars that might follow, the mirror reflecting no cars, no trucks, and no police cruisers. This was heaven, pure heaven, and I pondered how it was that I'd not discovered this beautiful road before. The exit seemed strange to me, one I'd never seen on the interstate, and for a moment I wondered if I would be able to navigate my way back to civilization. Such a ridiculous passing thought I gave no serious credence, knowing that every road had a beginning, and every road had an end, and every road led to somewhere. No doubt this pristine crescent would double back and lead me home, or end in a T intersection where I would be presented with a choice, the proverbial fork in the road. The further I drove, the more enticing the odor, dragging me toward its source. I told the silver bullet that a beautiful woman lay in wait at the end of this road, and her perfumed scent drove my mind to wild thoughts of romantic love, a thing sorely missing in my life. Perhaps she would be the woman of my dreams, a woman for whom I waited my whole life, and now that time had arrived. I squeezed the throttle a little harder, but doing so made the back end break loose. I reacted like a cat, my fast reflexes regaining control of my beloved Porsche. Further along, the foliage thickened on both sides of the road. Strange foliage. The trees had disappeared a good mile back, maybe 2, far enough not to be appreciable in my rearview mirror. The foliage shot up in thick, bending stalks that shrouded the road and wove together at the tops to act like a canopy, obscuring the sun yet allowing indicators of light to peer through many translucent spots high above. The road extended to infinity according to the perception registered by my eyes, and the pavement stretched on like a long tongue. The quality of the drive turned glassy smooth, and the hue of the road ahead turned decidedly light pink. I attributed the color change to an illusion of the shining sun beating down through the intense canopy of green overhead. The Porsche's rear end skated a few times side to side, encountering a surprising loss of traction for reasons unknown to me, and I reduced my speed in conformity to the slippery conditions. The Porsche settled down and regained traction, but now I sensed bumps and undulations beneath my tires, like rumble strips. I slowed to a crawl, preserving the suspension from potential damage. The shoulders of the road had disappeared a good half-mile ago, and the bumps became so rough I came to a stop in the middle of the road, unable to pull over on either side. I stepped out of the Silver Bullet to survey my surroundings. I nearly slipped and fell on a slick, slimy coating on the pavement. Beneath my feet were sharp, serrated knife-like protrusions, not dissimilar to the anti-theft spike strips at airports that prevented rental cars from leaving the lot without risking punctured tires. These spikes seemed to direct me forward, and certainly not backward. I attributed the oddity to forgotten construction work, government contractors neglecting to remove their spike strips, no doubt used to keep the flow of traffic moving ever forward. This truly was a one-way street, and I planned to complain about it when I returned home. I never understood the half measures given in any government works project, and for this crew, they demonstrated their lack of prowess in exemplary fashion that formed the basis of my very complaint. Yes, I can stipulate that they undoubtedly finished whatever repairs were needed for this road, but leaving behind a set of spike strips for the unsuspecting motorist was unforgivable, and I resented it. Yes, I would definitely file a complaint when I returned home. Resolved to continue my journey, I got back in and revved the engine, engaging first gear, and proceeded forward a little more pedestrian this time. The roughness of my travel gradually subsided, and the spike strips disappeared. Again, the road became slick, as if I were hydroplaning on a rain-drenched surface. It became increasingly difficult to keep my car pointed forward, and the front end skated side to side, not to mention the back. It was all I could do to prevent wrecking the Silver Bullet, driving a perilous line to avoid the wiry green vegetation on either side of me. At once, the road took a tumultuous dip, and then I plunged into a massive abyss. I observed this insane deviation too late, and my application of the brake did nothing to stop the slide. My beloved Silver Bullet and I went careening into an unfathomable cavern, headed toward a vast, seemingly bottomless pit. We crashed into a thick, gelatinous soup, trapped and held fast to the substance. My head ached from the impact, but I regained focus, making quick mental calculations how I would extricate myself from this foul situation. I looked around the twilight and saw horrible outlines, cars half sunk in the mire of this massive pit, and then I saw the human remains, drivers, passengers, and whole families in various states of decay and disintegration, the bony remains hiding in the shadows of one's worst nightmares. Their death poses displayed vigorous but failed attempts to free themselves, some with open vehicle doors. Other cars were empty, with no signs of anyone in or around the rusted hulks. It appeared from the ones I could see that they all died in their seats, melted by the gelatinous vat of viscous jelly that trapped them without mercy. What have I gotten myself into? My hands trembled at the wheel. The bodies of the trapped predecessors foretold of my own fate. My car began to sink, and the disgusting gelatinous liquid penetrated the seams of my door. I touched it with my finger and watched the flesh melt before I could react. The pain registered with an intensity I never experienced, and I screamed in unbelievable agony. I was in a pit of acid. I had to do something immediately, so I climbed out of the open window and made it to the roof. I smelled an acrid odor in the air of this death chamber, and my lungs felt as if on fire. The smooth, glassy walls of the pit glistened in the distance, too far away to risk wading and impossible to climb 100 feet up. My car shifted side to side in the unstable goo, and I sank in slow, deadly increments. I pulled my phone from my pocket and checked for a signal, finding none. I threw the phone into the pit, and it went up in smoke, the circuitry and plastic melting before my eyes. My breathing became shallow, each breath more painful than the last. I looked up to the sky and thought about my life and my choices. Life is truly a one-way road. When it ends and where, no one can ever be sure until it's too late. Today is the end of the line, the end of my time, a dead end, if you will. I close my eyes and take one more breath from this nightmare world, my lungs burning like hellfire, and I jump with the most graceful swan dive I can manage, leaving behind the Silver Bullet, headlong toward my next journey into the unknown.